Hi, everyone. I'm really excited to be here today. My name is Shika. I lead the product strategy and partnerships team here at Seceon. Thank you for joining all across the globe. I know it's very late in the evening for some of you, and we started very early morning for those in the East Coast. So, really grateful. So many of you have joined us this morning. A little about me and my background. I started my career in infrastructure at Meta, where I worked as a technical program manager, supporting the back-end systems behind Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram. And my work there really focused on helping data infra and product infra and AI infra organizations scale through automation, integrated tooling, high efficiency workflows. And that experience essentially taught me two things. Number one, that fragmented architecture breaks under real world scale, essentially. And the second thing, that a unified platform always outperforms stitched together tools, technically and finance, and from a finance point of view as well. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today. Um, this idea of how you can break free from this vendor tool sprawl and what your options are and how Seceon helps. Now at Seceon, I lead our product strategy and global marketing team where my focus is simple. I'm focused on aligning the power of our platform with the real operational and economic needs of MSPs and MSSPs. And I spend my time with partners understanding where their margins are being squeezed and where their workflows are sort of understanding where they're breaking and where the shift of a unified sort of AI native platform can give them that strategic advantage. And we go out and put that message out there for you guys to read and understand. I'm also completing my MBA at MIT Sloan, where I'm focused on uh, innovation and entrepreneurship. And that's why today's session is also very important to me. We're not just talking about sort of cyber attacks or scare tactics, and I'm not mentioning buzzwords just to mention them, but we're talking about something very real in this world of AI and entrepreneurship, and which is this idea of quantifying risk and how to turn security into measurable business ROI, and how platform native operations are transforming the economics of our entire tech industry in general. Okay, so before we talk about solutions, before we talk about Seceon, I want to start with the reality that I know every MSP and MSSP is feeling today. Security stacks are exploding. Every year, there are more tools, more alerts, more dashboards, more vendors, more integrations. Complexity keeps rising and margins keep shrinking. And let's start with the four sort of forces that are squeezing every MSP and the MSSP in the United States right now, including so many of you on this call, not even US, I would say globally. Number one, operational complexity. Multi-tenant security operations have become really hard. Every client has slightly different stacks, different settings, different policies. Analysts jump between different environments almost all day, and nothing is standardized. And that makes scaling really hard. Number two, economic pressure. Licensing unpredictability, per seat pricing, per endpoint pricing, per data volume pricing. Like, I am tired just talking about it. Every year, the cost of simply maintaining a security offering goes up while customers then expect you to keep the prices the same, which is really hard for you as an MSP. And then number three, detection and response gaps. With 10, 20, sometimes 30 different tools feeding you data, visibility is very fragmented. No single timeline of the attack, or there isn't a lot of unified context. You can't do a lot of correlation between these different contexts. Detection is slower. And then that brings me to number four. This one is the silent killer, the compliance burden. Every year, more frameworks, more evidence collection, more reporting. For many MSPs, compliance alone eats 2 full weeks of their year per client. And these aren't random issues. These four pressures form one system that trap MSPs in high effort, low margin, and constant operational firefighting. So now let's talk about what the MSP market actually looks like going into 2025 using real numbers from Service Leadership, MSP 360, IBM, Guards, Hiscox, Omdia, and Arctic Wolf. So yes, this isn't coming from me. This is publicly available information coming from industry experts. So number one, margin. The average MSP today is running at only 8% net margin. And the best in class MSPs target 18 to 20%, but it's hard for people to get there. And labor alone now makes up 80% of the total cost. So the economic model is stretched to its breaking point, I would say. Number two, tool sprawl. MSPs now manage 45 to 75 separate security tools across their customer base. This is a study. This number, you might be like, that looks like a lot. Actually, this came from IBM's X-Force report. So this isn't me. This is them going out and doing this research, okay? And that means nearly only 11% say those tools integrate cleanly. So you're paying in time, money, and manual effort just to keep this stack together, and they're not even integrating. And then number three, threat acceleration. The IBM export report said that 28% of malware cases are ransomware. Hiscox found that organizations face an average of 66 attacks a year. Guards measured a 4,000% increase in AI-powered phishing since GenAI arrived, which is a crazy number. So essentially, these attackers are scaling faster than the defenses. And that brings me to number four, operational strain. Arctic Wolf found 43% of MSPs now manage 500 clients, and 20% handle more than 500 tickets a month. So combine that with a 3-year average employee tenure, you can see why teams are stretched thin and why they're burning out, right? When you put all this together, shrinking margins, these tool stacks, rising threats, this really high operational workload, and people being burnt out, it becomes very obvious that the traditional MSP operating model isn't financially or operationally really sustainable anymore. Now let's talk about the single biggest operational problem every MSP and MSSP is facing right now. And I talked about this in my second point in the last slide, the fragmented security stack. This is what the day-to-day reality looks like for most teams. You're running, like I said, 45 to 75 different tools across your customers, sometimes more. We saw that, like I said in the last slide. And each one has its own console, its own alerts, its own rules and updates. And of course, its own contract and even renewal cycle, right? So your analysts aren't sometimes even focused on doing security. They're swivel chairing between dashboards and piercing together alerts that don't talk to each other. Because that data is fragmented, you sort of end up with these big blind spots and duplicated work and inconsistent workloads and slower response times. And this is why even talented teams feel underwater in architectures. Sometimes it feels like the architecture is working against them. And um, this is an exaggerated slide. Like I said, this is from that IBM X report. This is the live reality, and I've heard this from a lot of the MSPs that we've been talking to prior to them encountering Seceon. And now you might say, okay, yes, there's a high level of fragmentation, but why is this happening? So here's what we found after we did a good amount of research over the past few months. In the last decade, MSPs and MSSPs were told that the best way to deliver great security was to pick the best tool in every single category. So that means the best SIM, the best EDR, the best SOAR, the best vulnerability scanner, the best of breed sort of mindset made sense in theory, but in practice, here's what it sort of created. This incredibly high complexity where every tool adds a new layer of rules, alerts, tuning, and training. Number two, a really high integration effort because the tools don't naturally talk to each other and they aren't designed to. MSPs are spending hours wiring them together and breaking them every single time someone updates an API, right? And then number three, high cost. Separate licensing, separate billing cycles, separate professional services, separate training requirements. And then my last point, slow to time value. With 10, 20, 40, maybe you're that MSP with 75 tools in your stack. It takes months to get a customer fully operational. And you need to choose and have your customers know that you have an operation model that can actually scale, right? And I want to hit you with one more point here I didn't even talk about yet. But you've probably heard it in our other presentations prior to mine. The attackers. The attackers today don't break tools. They slip between tools, exploiting the gaps created when SIM, EDR, identity, cloud, network, data all live in separate systems. I'm going to say that again. Attackers don't break tools in 2025. They slip between tools. It's very important that you know that. Multi-stage attacks like ransomware, MFA fatigue, supply chain exploits, insider threats, right? They span five, six different domains, and no single best of breed tool can see the full kill chain. In a fragmented stack, right? Every tool sees like a different piece of that stack, but nobody sees the full picture. And that delays exactly what these attackers are relying on. And if you have, for example, these living off the land attacks or credential misuse, they can look completely harmless when viewed by one tool at a time, but unified behavioral correlation exposes them immediately. And this is why unified AI native platforms consistently outperform stitched together stacks because they correlate identity, endpoint, network, cloud, behavior all in real time, closing those blind spots that the attackers thrive on. And I'm going to now hit on one more point, another very uncomfortable truth that people don't want to say out loud. The so-called platforms in this industry that we're seeing today sometimes are not even platforms at all. They're what we're calling now within Seceon, and I guess the industry is naming them this as well, Frankenstein stacks. Okay? So it's a SIM bot, maybe in 2018. It's an EDR bot, maybe in 2020. A SOAR tool from 2021. It's 2025, now almost 26. It's been 5 years. Maybe it's a cloud added on from last year, all stitched together with sort of duct tape and really good marketing. But the underlying system never, between all these different tools, because they weren't built from the ground up, they can't merge. So you still have multiple data stores, multiple correlation engines, multiple schemas, multiple alert formats, multiple consoles. So then this vendor is going out and selling this and saying, hey, look, I have a platform, but the platform is actually the Frankenstein platform. And your analysts are still going to experience this tool sprawl, but it'll just have like a new logo on the top calling it a platform. And I think what makes this a bit hard is that with every new acquisition that they make, right? Um, you know, you have these situations where the automation is breaking, or the dashboards are breaking, or the integrations are breaking, and that isn't necessarily modernization. That's fragmentation repackaged as a platform. And this right here is the setup for vendor lock-in. Because once you're wired into all these stitched together systems, leaving becomes impossible. I want to make this point very apparent. In this entire conversation of best of breed and Frankenstein and being stuck with the same tools and not being able to leave, MSPs don't get locked in. I know maybe some of you are watching this, or you know people who are in this situation. You know companies in this situation. MSPs don't get locked in because they're careless. They get locked in because the system is designed to making leaving impossible. It always starts with that lure, the free POCs, the deep discounts for handling onboarding. It feels low risk because that real cost is hidden. Then comes integration. This is where sort of the sunk cost really starts to build in. You wire their APIs into your RRM, you build dashboards into your PSA, and you customize these very specific reports for your clients. But now You're quietly 150, 250K invested before year one even starts. And this is where you begin to have this dependency. Your playbooks, your automation, your analyst skills, your client portals, they all become tied to that vendor ecosystem. And their tool becomes the spine of your operations, whether it's good or not. So once you hit this point, even mediocre performance, even though you're not getting what you need, it starts to feel like normal. And the cost to leave goes up astronomically. That's why we call this the prison. The prison is sort of when you try to switch platforms, the cost hits fast and hard. Migrating even 20 to 30 clients requires 3,000 to 9,000 hours of analyst work, which can come down to 500 to $1 million. Your analysts then need 3 to 6 months or 400 to 800 plus hours to regain full productivity. Every RRM, PSA, SOAR playbook, API link, everything has to be rebuilt if you leave. And vendor certifications you paid for, 2,000 to 5,000 gone per analyst. It's a sunk cost. So even getting your own data back costs money. That's the point I'm trying to make. And for most MSPs, switching security platforms leads to churn because clients get anxious when tooling changes. So yes, leaving is expensive. And this is exactly how vendors designed it. Leaving is expensive. But now I want to talk about something that the vendors don't want you to calculate. Staying in, staying locked in with these archaic systems, staying locked in with these Frankenstein platforms, they're praying that you'll never calculate that staying locked in is even more expensive than it is to leave. Locked in platforms run at 30 to 40% false positive rates, which means your analysts lose 15 to 25 hours per week. Real detection performance is 60 to 75%, so customers remain exposed even though you're paying premium price. Your team loses another 6 to 8 hours every week fighting for manual correlation and other friction, and you open 40 to 60 escalations per month waiting for vendor support, and because you're very upset and you're not getting what you need from this tool. And add-ons use were included, they end up inflating your licensing by 40 to 60%. This is the full cost of lock-in. It's expensive to leave, but it is even more expensive to stay. And the data here has shown that. So after everything we just walked through, the lure, the dependency, the prison, and then that annual bleed if you don't leave, the natural question MSPs are asking is, so why now? Why is leaving suddenly possible in 2025 and 2026 when it wasn't before? Why should I leave now? And I think this is where the story changes. We are in a genuine industry inflection point, and I think this is one that didn't exist 10 years ago. For the first time, for the first time, behavioral analytics, correlation, automated response are built into platforms from day one. That's Seceon's OTM platform. For the first time, these AI native platforms can eliminate 50 to 70% of the manual correlation work that used to keep MSPs glued to multiple tools. For the first time, with true multi-tenancy, modern architecture offers cryptographic tenant isolation, right? You can do per tenant customization. You can do API first design. That means onboarding and migrations no longer require weeks of rebuilding dashboards and workflows from scratch. Seceon's S Collector can get months of migration onboarding done in days. And number three, these outcome-based pricing. Vendors are shifting away from this outdated um, uh, you know, uh, I would say a data ingestion model. Pricing is tied to actual security outcomes, not how much data you're ingesting. We know we need to be able to ingest your data to ensure you're safe. That's why Seceon is priced per asset. And then number four, again, unified architecture. We're finally seeing platforms replace 10, 20, 40 disconnected tools with one data model, one detection engine, and one workflow. And this is why switching now is possible. Not because suddenly MSPs have more time and more money, because I truly believe the technology landscape has really fundamentally changed. The architecture has caught up, the economics has shifted, the marketing is there, the tooling has matured, and Seceon has arrived. Everything we've talked about so far, the fragmentation, the lock-in, the annual bleed, the switching cost, all stems from the same root problem. Security was built as separate tools, not as a unified operating model. And this is where Seceon is fundamentally different. Seceon is not a point solution. It's not an acquisition bundle. It's not stitched together. It's a unified security platform designed from day one to replace 10 to 40 tools MSPs have been forced to manage across SIM, XDR, Yuba, SOAR, identity analytics, cloud monitoring. AI native behavior analytics, correlation, automated response are all built into this one platform's core. They're not even sold as add-ons. And because it's true multi-tenancy, you get tenant isolation, tenant-specific customization, and that fast onboarding I was talking about without rebuilding everything for each client. And now think about this economically as well, and solely economically. Take a look at this table on my screen and look at the red on the right-hand side. A traditional best of breed stack costs 180K for the SIM, 120K for the EDR, 90 for the SOAR, 45 for the vuln scanning, 40 for the DLP, 25 for the Yuba. Now, if I look at all of these 8 tools total, I'm seeing around 500K per year in licensing, and that's before adding more tools like PS feeds and other add-ons. Seceon consolidates all of those into one platform for around 200K. And then there's the SOC team impact. A best of breed stack requires you need at least 5 to 6 FTE analysts just to handle alert volume, and probably even more than that, depending on how big your environment is. But Seceon, let's say you only need 2 or 3. Our AI-powered SOC cuts down resources in half because native correlation and automated response remove most of that need for the manual triage. So that's staffing savings of around 240K per year. So put it together, the best of breed TCO is around 1 million. Seceon's TCO, half of that. That's a 50% reduction in total cost while delivering faster detection, faster response, and dramatically less operational drag. And this is why unified architecture wins, not just technically, but from an economic standpoint. So this is where everything comes together. What you're looking at here isn't theoretical ROI or marketing language. It's a real, predictable payback timeline that we see across partners. The first 2 to 3 months are your foundation, the deployment, migration, and the first set of customers moving onto the platform. And then by month six, and we see around 60% migration, and most MSPs begin to break even. By month 9, with the full migration, and I don't even think it should be taking even this long, but this is a very, very gross, rough estimate. By month 9, you're reaching profit. And by the end of year 1, partners can gain $300,000 to $800,000 in annualized savings and efficiency. We did the math. From there, the benefits compound to 60 to 75% lower operational cost. And what we have wanted this whole time, a security operation that can finally scale without adding staff. Platforms like Seceon are not just replacements for legacy tools, for archaic systems, for Frankensteins, for the best of breed. They're multipliers of efficiency, scalability, and resilience. So at this point, the question isn't, can you afford to change? The real question is now, how much longer can you afford not to? Every MSP in this room, every MSP on this call, every MSSP will eventually run on a unified AI native platform. Maybe you are a partner and you're using Seceon today for comprehensive security. Maybe you aren't. And maybe you're just using you're not using Seceon's platform to its full capabilities and its full advantage. Maybe you're still only using just the XDR. Maybe you're still only using just the SIM. And these tools are not correlating. Maybe you're using something else for EDR and Seceon for SIM, whatever it might be. I urge you to remember this presentation. I urge you to remember this data. And remember the importance of what we talked about today when it comes to integrations, ROI, correlation, and operations. This isn't about replacing tools. It's about redefining your operating model so you can scale and differentiate and win. The future of cybersecurity belongs to MSPs who choose transformation and modernization, not hesitation. And with Seceon, you've modernized early, you made the right bet, and it's time to sort of extend that gap because, like I mentioned, it's not that the question is, can you afford to change? You did. You're on our platform. Now the question is, and I urge you to think about it, how aggressively do I want to win? And if I want to win, I will use the platform to its full advantage and recognize its capabilities. Thank you.